I hope you're enjoying your summer. I've enjoyed these conversations, and this is the final part, so part 3 of my summer smash up. On deck for you is Ellie Unbound, Quinn Padilla, Nathaniel Blackburn, and one of my favorites, Zack, Lambert. This is a great way for you to catch up on these conversations, and especially if you're new to our podcast. In fact, I cannot wait for you because starting next week, our lineup begins week after week with conversation after conversation. And boy, are they good. So hit the subscribe button so you're following along because we're going to just get deeper and deeper in these conversations together. Thanks so much for watching.
Buckle up. This is What the Hell Do I Know with JB.
So I will tell people I've deconstructed some of my faith, but I don't know if you're familiar with Beth Moore. I listened to a podcast with her, and she really went through it. And the Southern Baptist Convention excommunicated her and all of this stuff. And she just really, it was a tough go. Very public, female author that guys in the church were told they couldn't listen to, although she's one of the foremost minds around the Bible and helping to walk through it with you in context. At any rate, they really excommunicated her because she came out politically against the administration and some other things. They're like, well, that's not Christian. And so she lost a lot of that, but she talks about how she didn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. She's like, I've been too long on the road with Jesus to get stopped with him, but I'm not, I see some of the errors here and there. Yeah. I mean, so I've been in that road. I say I'm kind of like Beth Moore in that. I'm too far along on this road with Jesus, and I've seen his impact in my life. Yeah. But I am very frustrated with the American church. Very frustrated. So where do you fall in your deconstruction journey? Because everybody's a little different,
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think right now I'm comfortable asking questions rather than like fabricating certainty for myself or forcing certainty.
Yep.
And I've got really comfortable in that mystery, in that uncertainty, to be honest, which I never ever thought that I would. And I think a lot of humans aren't, and that's okay. Yeah. That's just kind of how we're built to. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. So
well, we want to be right. We want to be right. We want to be right. And we want our point of view to be right.
Yes. We want to know why things happen. I always say humans are meaning-making, storytelling beings.
So you got into theological things too that bothered you. What do you think some of the theological things? Because there's a lot of times too that when I discuss faith, I feel like sometimes, look, we've got versions of our faith that read the Bible black and white. Black and white. Mm-hmm. And cherry pick from one section and then jump straight out to another section, and they have no clue who it's written to, the time it's written in, and who is written for. Yes. And so that discussion is something every Christian needs to have with their faith, in my personal opinion. But so what were some of your theological concerns?
Yeah, this is a huge conversation. It really is. I got sent a giant book from, I think it was my mother, and it's called Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell, and I think his son Sean McDowell as well. Yeah. And I just started reading through it. This was kind of like I was co-reading the Bible for the first time ever with a critical mind. I had read through it before, but really didn't stick. So I was kind of doing both of those things, and I was like, right when I started, I'm like, this is a journey. Like, I don't think we have enough years on this earth to explore everything in that book.
Yeah.
But things started coming up, and I've always thought about this too, like the problem of evil and suffering specifically. That's a huge one for me that I can't really get past. Just the thought that there's an all-loving, all-present, all-merciful God, and there's also children dying of bone cancer and tsunamis taking out full communities. Like that, really, I struggle with that. So I started reading through Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this all sounds like really good evidence for the Bible. I would love to hear the other side, because, my whole life I've heard this side. And I'm now an adult, and I've learned there's an entire world out there with different spiritual, religious views, and I want to read about them. So I picked up some Bart Ehrman, and he's awesome. He's like a world-renowned New Testament scholar. He writes awesome books like God's Problem, talks about suffering, and Jesus Interrupted, I believe, is the next one. He just talks about how the Bible was put together, how things came to be, the history of everything, and he just is so smart. So that's what started my journey. And also, I would write things down and go into a pastor, because I was taught, to submit to my authority. And of course you go to a pastor for theological issues, whatever. And that was also the beginning of the end for me in terms of my volunteerism at the church, and ultimately my husband's too, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
I had a whole notebook full of questions that was just completely dismissed by everybody but one pastor, who actually took the time to sit with me and not laugh at me and not poo-poo my age-old questions of theology.
Can't you just get it? Can't you just get it?
Yeah.
Can't you just move on from this? It's some faith is sitting in this chair.
Yes.
I mean, right? If you trust the chair to hold you up, that's just faith right there. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed too that faith was often being paired with certainty. And there's this lyric in this song that I love. It's like, I showed up to church and I watched people know what I could only guess at, because I'm never sure. And that lyric resonated so hard with me. I ended up sitting in a auditorium looking around. I'm like, these people are certain. These people are certain. How? I wish I could be. I can only guess at this, and I probably will only be able to do that for the rest of my life. I can hope. But, I can't keep forcing certainty on something that I don't feel certain about.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Paul writes, I think it was in Hebrews, but he writes, well, actually, to say the writer of Hebrews, there's a lot of discussion on whether Paul actually wrote it. But there's no certainty of who actually wrote Hebrews.
Yeah.
But it talks about, I think it's this, it might be chapter 11, but it shares it's not Hebrews. My viewers are so going to yell at me right now, because there's several of them that know exactly where it's at. But it says we don't mourn like those who have no hope. And I actually think Paul may have done it. But that is what it doesn't say. We don't mourn like those who absolutely 100% scientifically are proven that we're there. So it does say we don't mourn like those who have no hope. But hope is what's there.
I think you can have hope without religion as well.
You can, 100% you can. It's throughout time, people have certainly had that. I mean, religion was something that really got built up, for me at least, got built up over thousands of years. We just continue to get it wrong. I mean, you could argue that the disciples had it wrong even when Jesus was in their presence. But, we just have not been able to get it. After first century Christians, it really went downhill. And you could argue that it was barely going uphill then. But I tend to fall on the example of some of those guys that went to their death to share something happened, and an event happened. And these weren't guys getting palatial mansions on the south of France or riding in the fancy chariots anymore. They really had hard lives to tell a story. But so that for me stands out a lot for the example, but it's not nearly as much as it is in the scriptures, because there is scripture that is there's no way to say it, that contradicts, and things don't always line up, and we have questions, and so I totally understand that. Marla said when we were talking to her, the one thing she missed, because you talked about certainty, she said the one thing she did miss from the church was that she said the word. She said, I knew that I knew that I knew.
Yes.
And so I was certain. And that now that I'm here, I've had to get comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I find myself being, I think, more childlike than ever now, just kind of like, how do we know that? And then that leads you on a journey that could take like a year to read about it, you know, like in the case of the disciples dying gruesome deaths for the sake of staying true to their faith. How do we know that? How do you know? So that's, and not to challenge you, but like, that's how I challenge myself.
I appreciate I appreciate that challenge. No, I think you have to ask that. Is it is your faith just a blind faith, or is it not? Do you have some history behind it? Do you have some stories behind it? Is there how is this passed down generationally? How can we know? And some of it to me doesn't. I've never found that I have to like if something's disproved, it doesn't affect me. I have a soul. And I can tell you this, that the scripture tells us that the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace. My audience knows this because I say it all the time. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. If I endure life, if I move through life and I put those fruits first, I'm happier. And people around me are happier with me. And so the tenets of those things I feel.
Yes, 100%.
I get through the end game and it's all baloney. I still have lived a very fulfilling life.
Yes, that is probably exactly where I am as well. Like, you can get bogged up in this stuff for days on days on days. And I don't think that that's what Jesus or God, if that's what you want to call that being, would have even wanted. I think at the end of the day, it's what is the most helpful and healthy for the greater good and the greater society, and what does that look like? Because if you know everything about theology, but your behavior is not possessing those fruits, you know, it means nothing, really.
Corinthians basically says that in 13, you know, the famous chapter of love. Like, if you have not loved, then you're like a resounding gong, you know? And so, I mean, it's 100%. I think that's it. I mean, sometimes I think this idea that we are built for this quote unquote Christian life, it's just, there is no Christian life. There is no pathway that says this is how it is. If we can be graceful to each other and act in love, I think you can be the most Christ-like possible. I say it all the time. Our issue in the church isn't liberals versus conservatives or this administration but that. I mean, really, it's are you Christ-like?
Make sure you support my boys here at Floors.com. We're in their studio right now. That's FLOOR.com, baby. Floors.com. They will take care of all your remodeling and new build needs. Floors.com. Check them out. Tell them the jabroni sent you. So I got to tell you about my friends over at TruNorth Pest Control. TruNorth Pest Control, they take care of all them critters. You got palmetto bugs, they take care of them. You got ants, they got you. You got bugs little flying around, they'll spray for them. They clean out all the cobwebs. They're all over Central Florida, here in the Emerald Coast, and then the whole state of Georgia. Check them out, TruNorthPestControl.com. They are your pest control superheroes.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was terrifying.
What did you do? Did you prepare in advance?
I didn't know how to prepare. Again, I didn't have any family financial resources. I had no savings. My ex-husband's family has money, and so they held kind of all the financial resources. And I didn't know, again, retrospectively, I understand this was financial abuse, but a lot of people don't realize, or a lot of women don't realize, that financial abuse can also come in the form of frivolity. So my ex was very frivolous with our finances. And so he would put us in these financial situations where we didn't have money, but he had unlimited access to his family.
Okay.
So if he felt insecure at any point in time or wanted to buy something or wanted to go out or whatever, he could contact them. But if I, was like, oh, I really want to, I don't know, get new shoes for the kids or something like that. Not that our kids are neglected in that way, but this is just an example. He'd be like, oh, we don't have money for that.
Wow.
So it was a very like complex way that had been kind of twisted. And so I had no money to leave the relationship, where, you know, I do speak with a lot of women who are like, I've hired an attorney. That wasn't an option for me. I couldn't hire an attorney to help me settle the divorce, you know, settle custody. So I essentially just had to settle for whatever he was willing to like offer me. And my only power that I had was that he was in the military.
Yeah, because
So
they take that pretty serious, right?
they
I mean, you go to the
do.
command, or I don't know.
It's a good old boys club. So
Is it?
they're not going to protect the wife or the children. They're going to protect the service member for the most part. I've heard,
Yeah. You've heard
you know,
some
I've heard stories, but like that's not representative of the whole at all. And so he was very worried that I could potentially report what he was doing to his command, and that was the only power that I held, because I had no financial power. You know, he had physical power and emotional power. So I finally left in 2017. In the end of 2017, I moved out with my 3 kids, and it was kind of...
Were you in this area?
I was
At this
in this
point, you're in this
area.
area.
I was in this area, and I knew I was starting grad school a few months later. So I was like, I'll borrow student loans.
Okay.
I was like, I'll drive Uber and I'll clean condos. And so I just kind of hustled my way through single motherhood.
How many months or years had you contemplated leaving?
From the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how many years were y'all married?
9 years.
So 9 years.
Yeah.
You were contemplating the whole time. Every day? Every month? Would there be seasons you wouldn't?
There were seasons, but I wanted to leave, and that's how powerful the cycle of abuse is. So the cycle of abuse is explosive events, tension building, explosive event, love bombing phase, and then tension building phase. So that's kind of the cycle that it goes through.
So I understand the explosion. I understand the love bombing. I think that's fairly universal. The tension phase, what does that look like?
So it can be like, because in the love bombing phase or calm phase, I also like to identify that it's important to know that it's not always overt love bombing behavior. It can also be just a calm period, which is very settling, like resettling for your nervous system if you've just gone through an explosive event. So even if somebody's not like love bombing, like I'm going to change, I love you so much, you're the love of my life, they're just calm for a period of time, that can feel really good for your nervous system if you've been exposed to a lot of abuse.
It calms your nervous system.
It calms your nervous system down, the victim. So the tension building phase is usually a rebuilding of old patterns. Like maybe he starts to, you know, pick on you some more. Maybe he starts to get more angry. Maybe he's huffing and puffing around the house. Maybe he's making slights at you. Maybe he downloaded that dating app again. You know, just like these little behaviors. That's the tension building phase. And then there's usually some, you know, more micro events in between there. And then there's like an explosive event. Really, the oscillation truly is like the oscillation between love bombing and, you know, and abusive behavior is what creates what we call a trauma bond. I don't know if you've heard of this term.
I mean, I've heard trauma bond. What does that mean?
So a lot of people think a trauma bond is when people bond over trauma. That's what, you know, they're like, we're trauma bonded. We like trauma dumped on each other and now we're like best friends. Like that's like what people think trauma
I would
bonding.
probably have said that may have been how I defined it.
Yeah, it's a horrible name. I think it is like not representative of like what it actually is. But what a trauma bond is a physiological connection between a victim and their abuser that is developed and strengthened by the cycle of abuse.
Oh, wow.
So between the intermittent love bombing or calm and abuse behaviors, what it does is it disorients your nervous system. So the person that is causing you harm becomes your safe space. So it's a very confusing and complex situation for a woman. And it is,
Wow.
they've done studies on trauma bonds, so that nervous system connection you have to your abuser, where they have found that it is a stronger addiction than heroin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what is that one? It's the syndrome where the kidnapper, falls in love.
Oh, the Stockholm syndrome.
The Stockholm syndrome. Is that? I mean,
There's actually no. If you look in the history of the psychological relevance of Stockholm syndrome,
Okay.
it's like actually not real. Like they based it off this like one random incident where they thought a woman was in love with the guy that held her captive when
and
actually
she's just
she was fawning.
She's trying to survive.
She was surviving.
She was surviving.
And they were like, oh, she's in love with him, and she was fawning, which is a trauma response.
Yeah.
And so Stockholm syndrome, like,
not even
actually is
true.
like not even a real, like, there's not any psychological evidence behind it.
We're over here dispelling myths on what the hell do I know?
I know. Yeah.
So, not years to get out.
Yeah.
You asked for a divorce. Did you have another place? Did you? I feel like you had to do some preparation. Then, or did you just like pack up clothes and be like, "That's the last fight"?
So I found a place that was, nearby where we lived in Niceville.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a personal loan, and I also I had a paddle board, and I had gym equipment that I'd sold that was like mine, even though, because I had no claim to any of our finances.
Yep.
And I begged the landlord of the place. I was like, she's like, you don't have an income. And I was like, please let me move out of my house. And I don't know what it was about like my presentation that she was like, I'll let you move into this house. But she let me sign the lease. And so I was able to get out and,
Wow.
It's actually.
Does she know what she did for you?
I told her later. I think that she'd at some point like come over to the house to like do a walkthrough or something. And I think she happened to run into my ex, and she was very, I think she knew that I was in a bad relationship.
She didn't know how bad.
But she didn't know. And she was like, oh my God, and because I cried to her many times in that office, like kind of pleading, like, please let me rent this place from you. But when I got it, it was infested with fleas. It was so bad. It was not a nice place. And
she was lucky to have you.
I know she was, but she was like, and she was a good, bad interaction, because she was like, well, how do I know it wasn't your dog? Because I had a dog. And I was like, I've been here 2 days and I'm covered in flea bites. So are my kids. And my ex, of course, was like, come on back.
I'll take you back.
Like, I'll take you back.
Things will change.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Like, you don't want to subject the kids to that, and you don't want to live in that kind of environment and all these. And it was so enticing, but I had recently met a woman on base who was a JAG officer. She was
which is
like a military attorney, like a military legal person.
Yeah, I was certain of it because of a Tom Cruise film.
Oh yeah.
but I just want to make sure anybody listening would understand.
Yeah, so he's like, it was a legal military person, and she also simultaneously happened to be going through a divorce from an abuser and had 3 kids. And she was like, I can't really help you because I can't. They're not allowed to like represent civilians and things like that. Okay. But she was like, but if you ever need anything, you let me know. Okay. And so I'd met her like a month before I moved into this place, and I was like, I called her up and I was like, will you write me a letter? Because I'd told the landlord, bluffing, I was like, I'm going to call my attorney. I don't have an attorney. I don't even have any money.
Right.
And so I called this lady and I was like, will you write like a legal letter to force them to do the pest control in this house?
Right.
And she was like, sure, no problem. Sent it in. Next day they came in and sprayed the place and like got it all,
What amazing work there to get that done.
It was a great resource. I think the universe like lines things up for you that they just like fall into place somehow.
So, your children, you have 3? Mm-hmm. And all boys?
I have a girl, boy, girl.
So 2 girls and a boy.
Mm-hmm.
What's the importance of somebody's in an abusive relationship and they say, well, I want to, because I know that sometimes it's like, well, I want to keep the family unit together. Or I want to do this for my kids, or I want to, I don't want them to not have a father. I don't want them to be separated. I know that happens in families. And I'm sure that's what you, in your head, were going through.
Yeah.
What's the importance of, what kind of example does it set to say that this is not healthy and walking away? Like, because there's a strength in that your kids can see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much, again, complexity and nuance to everybody's situation. And I think it really does send a message to your children, both boys and girls, that like, to girls, hey, this is not how we should be treated as women and in relationships. And to boys, a woman's not going to put up with that type of behavior. And this is not how you should treat someone also.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of strength in demonstrating that. And one of the struggles that women I work with go through, they're like, I don't want to split time with my kids. I'm so scared to have them go with their dad, 50% of the time, and then be with me 100%, or the other 50% of the time. And I tell them, I'm like, well, right now you think you're protecting them, but they're exposed to abuse 100% of the time by staying in this relationship.
Oh, wow. So now that we've covered reality television, we've covered faith, what I want to talk to you about, and we'll kind of wrap this whole conversation up with this subject matter, what you're doing now, TruNorth Retreats, and you're really, because you're bringing men into these, to get in touch with their vulnerability.
Yeah, man. What a gift. By the way, Jason, I just want to say, I could talk to you all day about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I hope we'll continue to, because I want men around me that
oh my gosh,
that challenge and sharpen me, right? Like real talk.
You're in my text message today,
Come on,
brother.
let's go. Yeah, dude, vulnerability. Okay, like I think if guys are really honest, that word is super uncomfortable for them in general. Not everyone, but a lot. Vulnerability, I think, is the place where real transformation can happen and change, because we learn that, like, how to actually be honest with others, with ourselves and with God. And I know the Lord meets you there in that place of true honesty and vulnerability that is super difficult to manufacture or get to on our own, based off of everyone's terrified, whether they admit it or not, of being found out for the secrets they have, for the inadequacies they carry, for the judgment they harbor, right? And so, like, I consider myself lucky to have become a crack cocaine addict that lost everything multiple times and wanted to kill himself, because that was the end of the road for me, to be willing to say yes to a God I didn't believe in, and simultaneously open myself up to being vulnerable. Addicts and alcoholics are forced into vulnerability or they die. And those that say yes to that, can build a life on some amazing things and become light to other people. The problem is, most men don't get addicted to crack cocaine.
Right.
So the thing,
how do you get them vulnerable?
Well, first of all, we're all addicts, right? Everyone on this planet's in recovery. Biblically, you're born dead, and you're in recovery. Recovery from what? Recovery from yourself and your flesh. Well, what does that look like? Well, most guys just end up dying spiritually versus dying physically, because the thing they're scared to tell you they struggle with is not killing them physically; it's killing them spiritually, so they can live with it and they can hide it. Right? And then it becomes this festering thing inside the soul that destroys their family, that destroys their identity, that makes them isolate, that makes them perform. And so, I thought building the ministry TruNorth was really going to be a ministry towards people in recovery, because that was my story. And God was so sweetly ahead of the curve for me on that. And it was, son, build a place and bring men in that don't know they're in recovery. I'm like, who's that? And he's like, that's everybody, buddy. It's everybody. And so in this place that we're trying to create and curate for a man to sit at the foot of the creator of creation to go, hey, God, like, where am I not being honest in my life? Every guy can sit there and find something.
Did you you ever heard about Celebrate Recovery?
Yeah, that's in the churches, kind of the church
It's the
version
church
of
version.
AA.
Some people call it the soft version, but the premise is kind of what you're saying, because it's everyone has hurts, habits, and hangups.
Of course.
So everyone's recovering from something, codependency.
100%.
You know, performance-based anxiety.
We let you live with
whatever it
codependency.
is. Yeah.
And we're not judging you, and you're not being put on, you're not on a help my son's dying
It's
mat.
not right.
Don't know where my son's at.
You don't go to the emergency room for codependency. You go to the emergency room for overdoses.
Your marriage fails.
Yeah, right.
And we let that happen.
We let it happen. Good call.
Or you secretly look at pornography in marriage and don't have sex with your wife, and the divide begins and the family's destroyed because we don't want to talk about it at the pulpit. Like, get over yourself, man. Like, everyone is dying on the vine, period.
Right.
Like, my story's no different than yours and anyone else listening out there, is that, like, man, we live in a fallen, broken world, and apart from God and even kind of on paper walking with God, man, we struggle with selfishness and self-seeking and sin and dishonesty.
Heck, with God, I struggle with that.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, let's create spaces where dudes can be like, hey, I'm scared if I say this out loud, my wife will leave me. I will be kicked out of my church, and my Bible study group will no longer let me be there. But hey, I'm really struggling with pornography, or I go to a massage parlor, or, I am actually stealing from my company to try to make ends meet so that the life I'm providing for my family doesn't change.
So, Nathan, years ago, Danielle and I, my audience, if you've listened to it all, you may have heard some of that story, but there were times where we were struggling in marriage, and I just remember I decided we need to see a counselor.
Yeah.
And I was working in the church. I was I wasn't on staff at the time, but I was I think I might have been secretary of the board or whatever, and running Bible study classes. Yeah. Everybody knew me. There was Celebrate Recovery in our church that we had, all of these things. And I thought, man, I need to see somebody, and we need to see somebody. I need to see somebody. We need to see somebody. Yes. I've got issues I need to work through. And I found the best Christian counselor I could find that was on the other side of town.
There you go.
So we drive an hour away.
Yeah, why?
One way. Because nobody knew me.
That's right.
And my church wouldn't know. My people wouldn't know. Nobody find out my secret.
Yeah, man.
And because you do. You see it'd be the short end. And shouldn't be that way. But there are some truth to what's being said and how people are being felt, because we've seen it time and time again. We've seen people say something and lose all their church friends, lose all that community that's around them.
Can we all come together and stop doing that?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Dude, but when I became a believer, and I went to my first church, I thought I was going to show up to a room full of people who were openly going, yeah, I'm bleeding out right here, man, but here, let me help you. And so when I got there and saw the Truman Show, I'm like, what is? And
it's a country club, baby. Coffee shops and
dude, hey brother, I'll pray for you. How you doing with that?
That's right.
I'll pray for you. Man, it's like, no,
do you mean it? Do you mean it?
But also of course non-believers don't want to come in there.
Yeah.
Because you're walking around like you're not broken.
It's not a hospital.
No, we should just be walking around like, hey man, look at this scar.
Yeah.
You know what though? But he healed it, because I was honest about it. So back to your vulnerability question.
Yeah.
Look, the death of us is going to be, us not creating spaces for men to learn to be vulnerable. We wonder why the divorce rate's so high. We wonder why church, this and that. And then then there's the church stuff where, it's performance, man, and all this crap. I am just called to look at my heart with Jesus.
That's right.
And then control what I can control. What is he giving me authority over? My wife, right? Not authority, not in a misogynist way. No. But how do I be about it? Not talk about it, be about it with my wife and with my kids and with the stranger at Starbucks. Yeah. Why do I flip off the guy in front of me in Franklin, by the way, not Nashville? All my Franklin people know. Why do I flick off the guy in traffic going the speed limit when I'm on my way to my appointment?
Yeah,
because
he
I'm
cut you off.
selfish. Because I'm selfish and it's about me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to be late. And he doesn't know that. He's going the speed limit. Why am I in such a hurry? Because apart
How
from
could I give grace?
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, I like get to the root of why I'm an a-hole, and then the world will change.
Well, and I love that you're bringing guys, because vulnerability really, when we get vulnerable and when we get the idea of that we don't have it all figured out and how can I get better, it's amazing what changes around you and and how your environment changes just because you're making internal change. It's amazing how relationships get better. It's amazing how those things work. And so it's a unbelievable thing. What I want to ask you about TruNorth Retreats, because I have been asked to a number of retreats. I mean,
Sure.
Over my time in church, involved in ministries and stuff like that. I mean, I've been asked to all of them, and inevitably, when I talk to folks, I've really never done one. So I'll go ahead and fess up. I've never done one. I've been
Contempt prior to investigation is prejudice.
That's exactly right. But most of the time when they tell me about this, I mean, man, it's like cafeteria food. I'm sleeping on a cot somewhere, in some backwards hole, and but I'm going to find Jesus, and the first thing I can think about is, am I going to find a good night's sleep? Like camping ain't for me. Yeah. But everybody wants to take me to the top of a mountain and help me find Jesus, and I get it. But what is it that you guys do that attracts people? Because I know you do things that are a little different to try to take away all of those objections.
Man, I just love that you're honest about that,
Yeah.
Again, when I got pulled into building a retreat ministry, kicking and screaming, quite literally, who am I to do this? I don't have a book to sell. I don't have any of all this stuff. But when I accepted, okay, man, God wants me to build this space, I think, for men to experience intimacy with him through vulnerability. Cool. And then I went to all my people in Dallas, Texas that I was doing life with, who were all guys in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, man, who like comfort had become a thing. And all those guys are like, look, I don't do retreats, man, because of what you just said. I'm like, okay, how do I fix this problem, God? And quite literally, the Lord put on my heart, man, son, take the objections off the table. So what does a man object to? You just said it for me. You built my case for me. Okay, cool. So what do I like? Oh, I want to get a good night's sleep too. I love food.
Yeah.
Like if a guy's not worried about how he's sleeping or what he's eating, will he be present enough to do the work required to touch and taste what we're talking about? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So then we set out on, okay, well, how do I do this? And so we've partnered with and we've built a process that we would put up against anybody's, ministry or resort kind of style of thing. So our accommodations are incredible. The partners we have, the facilities are super nice. It's intimate. It's 10 to 12 guys total. You're not doing bunk beds. You're either in a king bed or maybe you're in a room with one other queen, right? Like the food, we have a chef. It's farm to table. Everything we want to. We want to also teach men about the sustainability of actually like good food and what that looks like. And, not only building into a spiritual discipline and spiritual diet, but like, hey, why do we feel bad? Why are we inflamed? Well, because you're eating all that processed crap, right? Like we didn't know until years ago we started kind of unpacking that stuff. So yeah, our experiences are gonna make you really comfortable so that you can get uncomfortable. Because that's the deal. Jason, where do you and I chase the kingdom of comfort over the kingdom of God? Everywhere. So let's at least feed them. And, one of our little stupid tags is, come eat like a king, sleep like a king, and spend time with the capital king, right? Like,
Interesting.
Because we want to do that. What a man will learn coming away from us, nothing from me. The secret sauce is not Nathaniel. The secret sauce is us building a beautiful table, asking a man to sit down and have a meal with Jesus, and when he thinks he's had enough, allowing us to ask him to sit back down to have a little bit more. In that process, a man will see, touch, and feel what the Lord wants him to see, touch, and feel, to then be able to effectively make change in his life back home that then transcends generations to come with being a biblical leader in your household. That's it.
I love the idea that, because there is something to be said of doing hard work. I mean, I was talking to my brother the other day, and we were just talking about growing up. And there's only one other person in my life that knows what it's like to grow up with the parents we had.
Sure.
And I love my mother, I love my father, but
Yeah.
there's certainly things that I think they regret, and there's certainly things
Sure.
that we've regretted. And it's funny because I was telling him, I said, even to this day, at 49 years old, even to this day, I'm saying, I didn't like that part. Or I'm still dealing with that part.
Yeah.
Or I still find myself in this like PTSD from that part.
Yeah.
And building boundaries around that part.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm 49 years old. And he's like, me too.
Yeah, man.
And so, but if we don't deal with those things and we don't talk about those things, we just pass down those things.
Yes, man. Yeah, this is the heart of it, Jason. Like, you're nailing it, man. Dude, like, my story is this minority, crazy, big T trauma story that people can check out on because they didn't have that. But here's the deal. Every human on this planet has trauma because we were raised by, coached by, in relationship with, and in community with humans. Humans are the problem. Broken humans. Whether it's done nefariously or done accidentally, we transmit that stuff. If you are a man and you are in your 40s and you've never gone backwards to do heart work around your life, then you are definitely transmitting things to your children and to others that were given to you willingly or unwillingly, period, end of story. The call to sanctification and a relationship with God through the modality of what we do in our retreats is for a man's like, hey, here's the octagon called solitude. Jesus is in there and he's ready to teach you, train you, wrestle you, and heal you around those things to change the direction of your life with your family and all that stuff. Like, man, my wife and I, if I'm not spending time in solitude asking the Lord, like, hey, why am I so frustrated when she does X, Y, and Z? And then not worrying about what she's doing and going, okay, God, like, what am I called to do in this current situation? And how do I get free from the anger and judgment I have? And wait a minute, like, why am I even angry?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and then you find out the good, like, gold down in your soul of childhood experiences, of adolescence, young adulthood, of all these things that have built up on us like the silt of the world onto our minds that block us from being children of God. And so in the vulnerability, in the solitude, working that stuff out, man, is like the thing that I feel like current Christian men, believing men, followers of God, we've missed.
I've got so many questions. We're not going to get to them all because we're having such a great conversation. I'm really enjoying this. But I want to share with you that I think it was about a year ago. I have probably the best hairstylist besides my daughter, my middle child. She is going through cosmetology school right now.
Oh, cool, man.
And I'm excited to see what she does. And she's probably going to, because she's my daughter, she'll
surpass for sure.
She'll surpass this guy. But my hairstylist is, I've been going to him for a decade, better than a decade. This guy, oh my word, I love him to death. And we have plenty of meals with him and his husband. We have so many. We've gone to comedy clubs. We've gone to concerts. These people, I love them to death.
Yeah.
And every time I sit in the chair, we talk Jesus. Every time I sit in the chair, and we get into some incredible discussions that are amazing, and there's some really heartbreaking discussions that are really, really tough. I wanted to share with you that a year ago, he told me he had been trying to get through the Bible. He was struggling. He had never really read it, that he felt like it talked to him.
Yeah.
And so it was before I read your book. I told him, I said, well, let's just start in John. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
It's one I love. It points to the deity of Jesus in every chapter.
Absolutely.
It's got some incredible stuff. And I said, but I want you to think about it as though the writer is writing it to you, that you're reading this as a novel, not some ancient text, just something easy. And when we get the things that stump, because there will be, let's talk.
Course.
Let's get through.
Yeah.
So we spend like a month going through the book of John together. And he gets to John 10, and we start talking about 10:10, that Jesus came to give him life and to give it fully and abundantly.
Yeah.
And he said, man, that one kind of got me. And I said, he's talking about you.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love that. I'm getting chills, man. That's so good.
And it was really amazing. So I'm getting chills myself. I love this, and I know he's going to listen to this because he listens to everything, and I want him to know I love him. But fast forward, I come in, I said, brother, I got a book you got to read. You got to read this book. And I said, and it's got a part in there too about this LGBTQ plus stuff.
Yeah.
And this whole story of, Enochs and eunuchs and the whole story. I said, you just got to read it. You just got to read the whole book. You got to read the whole book. He is now passing your book around to everybody
awesome.
he can. And he told me every time I go in, he's like, the Disney princess lens. Oh my goodness, the Disney princess lens. And
I love it.
Yeah, so your book's helping so many people out there, but it helped him be seen.
Man, that's beautiful. Well, listen, if he is listening to this and whenever he listens to it later, everything that Jason said is absolutely true. And John 10:10 is absolutely about you and every other human being on this planet, that God wants us to experience fullness. And that does not mean diminishing how he has made us or created us to be. It actually means more fully living into it. And so I'm so happy that he's listening and gets to hear that message, man.
Man, it's an amazing thing to see somebody come alive.
Yeah.
In their faith.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's emblematic of a larger truth inside of the LGBTQ plus community that I talk about at the end of that chapter you referenced, which is the 10th chapter on fruitfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And, I put a lot of statistics into that chapter about LGBTQ plus people and being pushed out of the church and terrible conversion therapy and all this kind of stuff. But I end on page 186 with this. And I just want to say, I put a lot of really sobering statistics into the first part of this chapter, but I want to share one more with you that I find to be so encouraging. When it comes to those who have left the church as adults, only 9% say they are open to returning. But do you know what the percentage of LGBTQ plus folks who say they are open to coming back to church is? 76%. More than 3/4 of queer folks who have left the church are open to coming back if they can find a safe, inclusive, healthy, Jesus-centered community to be a part of. And the truth is, if they can find people like you in their life, right, who can tell them about this, 76% of LGBTQ plus people who have left the church are open to coming back. And that's true, right? Of your guy that you just talked about, of probably his husband and so many others. If we will just share with them the unfiltered love of Jesus, centered on John 10:10 and centered on this desire that God has for absolutely all of us to experience fullness of life, man.
Man, amen. It's just so, like I said, when somebody comes alive and they know that Jesus loves them, that's like an amazing thing. And it pains me when somebody thinks that he doesn't.
Absolutely.
But you told that over and over and over again, you start to believe it.
Yeah.
I can remember my first funeral I ever did, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a default pastor of a downtown Atlanta church in Little Five Points, Atlanta, and I say as a default because I was never supposed to do it, and the guy left. The church kind of pulled the guy back.
Okay.
Loved the people there, but for whatever reason they pulled out of it. I just fell in love with the community and was like, we were doing Bible studies, doing Bible on a parade, all these kind of crazy things, just bringing people in. The community was full of LGBTQ plus. The community, the theater we met in was run by the queer community.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was amazing. I have so many stories that I can tell you about this. It's just amazing. But the first funeral I ever did was for a lesbian couple in our church. And one of them, Myra and Carla, both came, and Myra passed. And I've told this story, and Carla's given me permission. Otherwise, I wouldn't say names. But when she passed, Carla was kicking and screaming coming to our church because we said we were. But they got a flyer that said we're a church for people. I said we're a church that for people that don't like church, we always say that we're not your mama's church unless your mama goes to our church, sort of thing. So, uh, so Myra felt a longing for faith. Carla was like, "There's no way I'm going to these bigoted, places and whatnot." Fell in love with us before long. That we're doing Bible studies. Carla does still anti-faith. I mean,
Sure.
tipped in. She's barely there. She's not sure of all this stuff. Myra's in. She's in. Myra passes away at night, just suddenly, unexpectedly. First person Carla calls is me.
Wow.
I show up to her home, and because that community is so separated from family, so separated from church, so separated from community, they form their own community. So
Yeah.
the neighborhood is coming in through the home, bringing dishes, and they're being the hands and feet of Jesus, and she's parading a line. Part of it, her family, some of her family's not there, but she's parading people through the line like, this is my one brother, I've lost the other one, or whatever, and going down the line. At the end of the line, she's like, "And this is my pastor." And everybody does a double take.
Yeah.
What is this guy doing here? I'm not that kind.
Yeah. That's right.
So it is unfortunate that this hurt and this pain, and you're totally right. It's funny that you mentioned that. I have that as one of my questions. 76% is room for anyone here. 76% of the community would come back to the church.
Yeah.
That I also wanted to speak a little bit about that verse in Isaiah 56, that talks about, I will give you a name better than sons and daughter.
Yeah.
When-
There's
Yeah.
that text, and Jesus's words in Matthew 19, and then the story of Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8. Those three texts build such a beautiful picture of God's love for sexual and gender minorities. And the terminologies are all different. Obviously, the ancient world is not the same as the modern world, but if we think of the LGBTQ plus community as statistically sexual and gender minorities, and we see that community being specifically addressed by God through the prophet Isaiah, by Jesus in Matthew 19, and by the early church in Acts 8. And it's not in a mean way. It's not an exclusive way. It's actually in an inclusive, better name than sons and daughters, right?
Yeah.
The God literally basically teleporting Philip to the Ethiopian eunuch so that he can minister to him and baptize him. This guy who had been turned away from the temple because of his status as a gender minority. And God says, no, this church is not going to be like that. Sends Philip to minister to him, to baptize him, and to fully welcome him into that early church, into God's family. There's just so much beauty in the text. And man, what you said earlier about just so many people have been told, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, been told over and over again that they don't have a place, that God does not love them, that God finds them to be an abomination or whatever it is. And man, I'm honestly, after 10 years of pastoring and doing all the work that I get to do, I am more convinced than ever before that the greatest sin is convincing someone that God doesn't love them. That's just, to me, there's no greater sin than that. It is just... I find it to be anti-Christ in the truest sense of the word. It is the absolute opposite of what Jesus came to do and say and teach and model, which is that God's love is for absolutely everyone, and the flourishing and fullness of life is for absolutely everyone. And so people, specifically people in powerful positions who are using that power or privilege to convince somebody that God does not love them, I just find it to be absolutely shameful and evil. And I'm not somebody who throws that word around at all.
Yeah,
I think that it is absolutely evil to convince someone that God doesn't love them.
Zach, wow. I love that you said that. And I agree with you. And I've never heard it said that way. And I think this will be a first for somebody to say it that way.
Yeah.
When people have a problem with any community, but certainly with LGBTQ plus, I usually ask them if they've broken bread. Have they decided to get agency with someone? Have they decided to do life with someone? that is from that community.
Yeah.
Because when you do life with someone, you realize it's different. I mean,
That's
look,
right.
I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. I had varying opinions about, or no, I didn't have varying. I had one opinion about the homosexual community, and then you start to know people,
Yeah.
right? You start to get to know people, and you start to love them.
Yeah.
I'll give you one more story from me, which I know that's not what we're doing. But when I was at the theater, they called me and said, you know, look, we'd love to invite you to this panel of we're going to do a bullying panel. And so I had young kids at the time, and elementary school kids, and it's like I hate bullying. I absolutely hate bullying. So I show up to this this panel, and I wasn't on the panel. I just showed up in, and I kind of sat in the back to listen in and be a part of this community. But the entire panel was made up of trans, lesbian, gay, and just from all over the place. Some authors, some radio DJs. I mean, just really a well positioned panel.
Yeah.
And they all told their story, their heartbreaking story of bullying.
Hmm.
At the end of it, they opened it up to question, and this theater was packed. They opened it up to questions, and everybody's asking the panel questions. And one older gentleman stands up, and he talks about being on the campus of some college in whatever. I felt like he's in his 60s, so whenever time frame he was, and he said that we haven't talked about the elephant in the room, and it's what the church has done to us.
Wow.
Now, the moderator of this panel then shifts the spotlight to the back corner of this theater, and she goes, well, guess what? We have our pastor here.
Wow.
Now, I'm in tears at this point.
Of course.
I'm in tears at this point. And all I could do is stand up and tell them that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. I think I repeated that 1,000 times over and said that the Jesus I know, the Jesus I love, loves you.
Yeah.
And it took me hours to get out of that theater, talking, hearing stories.
Yeah.
And so it is.
Man, that's so beautiful. That's so
you
beautiful.
are absolutely right.
Well, let's kind of circle back on something you said real quick.
Please.
Because I just think it's so important, and I want to highlight it. You talked about breaking bread, right? You know, getting to know folks, specifically in the LGBTQ plus community. If you find yourself as a Christian who is anti-LGBTQ, or at least, you know, believes that they should be limited in their participation in the church, or whatever it looks like. If that's you, you know, and sitting down and breaking bread, there's this really interesting thing that happens in a lot of churches where they say, well, listen, I can't do that because I don't want to let my heart be changed, because I know that's not God's truth. And so I don't even want to put myself in that position to be swayed by emotions. We've been taught so many times in certain kinds of, you know, more conservative fundamentalist churches, don't trust your emotions, don't listen to your heart, just listen to what we tell you to do, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I find a lot of folks push back against this, like, you know, let yourself actually have empathy and experience. And we're not even talking about how empathy is now being demonized by so many people in the right-wing spaces, books being written about called toxic empathy by people in these spaces, right? That because they know that this ends up leading to mind change and heart change. But what I want to actually point out is that this is actually the biblical model that we see in the early church. So in Acts chapter 10, you have God tell Peter to go to Cornelius's house, right? Cornelius is a Gentile, and God wakes Peter up and says, go to Cornelius's house. I have an appointment there for you. I want you to go talk to this guy, Cornelius. He's a Gentile, but I want you to go talk to him. Peter goes, and if you remember, he has this dream, right? Where God, and he has it 3 different times in this dream, where this sheet comes down, it has all these different animals, and, you know, God says, kill and eat these animals. And Peter says, no, these are not kosher. I would never do that. And God says, don't call anything that I have made unclean, right? 3 different times in that dream, God specifically tells Peter, don't call anything that I have made unclean. Then he goes to Cornelius's house. God has set him up with this dream. Cornelius, you know, is talking about God. He's a God-fearing man. His whole household has questions for Peter. And Peter, in hilarious, you know, very typical Peter fashion where he puts his foot in his mouth all the time, he basically says, I'm not supposed to associate with people like you. Like, y'all are unclean, but I have actually learned that God has said, don't call anything that I have made unclean. And so they end up having this fellowship. The Holy Spirit comes down on Cornelius and his whole household. Peter is completely transformed, and he goes back to Jerusalem and the head of the early church. And he says, I just saw this incredible thing happen in Cornelius' house. I know we thought that Gentiles had to become Jews before they could become Christ followers, but that's not true, actually. The Holy Spirit is already falling on these Gentile communities. And so then fast forward to Acts 15, the whole Jerusalem council gets together. James and all the others, Paul is there, Peter's there, all the others that are deciding kind of the direction of the church. And both Peter and Paul give testimony about what they have seen and experienced. They have gone to these Gentile places and they have seen and experienced the Holy Spirit of God in these Gentile communities. And the whole Jerusalem council says, well, if that's true, then we need to change how we understand this.